It's time for another comic book retrospective. We're going to Marvel Comics and Captain America with issues number 164 through 167. I hope you're ready to hear all about the Yellow Claw. And here with me, as always, is the comic retro gang. We've got comic book writer and award-winning editor Joe Corralo. How you doing, Joseph?
I'm all right, Wes. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We also have the man so cool they call him the Braid, the voice of the voiceless, the comic book hoarder. Is that you, Eric Braid?
It would appear so.
So we had a fantastic time reading these comic books. We are going back to 1973, specifically May to August 1973. This is Steve Engelhardt, Sal Buscema, primarily illustrating this, with Alan Weiss and John Romita on another issue. Breed, I love Captain America. What about Steve Engelhardt on Captain America makes it special?
I think he pretty much captured what was going on in the country at the time, and it reflected in his writing. And we won't get into it today, but there are seeds planted in the story we're doing today that would bear fruit about a year after that. That's the original Secret Empire story. So his Cap was patriotic, but not blindly so. And he did a very good job at Steve and Sam's friendship, I always thought, and what was going on. I said the stuff that we'll touch on a little bit today with Steve and Nick and the Contessa. Yeah, it's just his subplots were very well thought out and meticulously done. I thought he had a great feel for the character.
Absolutely. Joe, I know Steve's one of your favorite Captain America writers. Is Cap your favorite Marvel character?
Might be.
It's hard to pick one, isn't it?
It's hard to pick one. It might be Captain America. Certainly, it's like a solo character. Yeah, it's probably Captain America. I've read quite a lot of Captain America. I really like the guy, and he's had a lot of phenomenal runs. This is up there. If it's not like the best lengthy, beefy run on the book, certainly the best since like Jack Kirby was on the book. It's one of the most mined runs.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a couple of events in here, and when you see the event, you're like, "Hey, I read that in another comic book recently." And you're like, "Yes, it was."
Yeah, I mean, this run, like this launched Engelhardt's career. This was his first major gig. I think he had written maybe 4 comics. I think he maybe had 4 credits before they handed him Captain America, which was one of their lowest selling titles at the time. And he got this title to skyrocket. He got Avengers, Defenders, Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, and other books as he was doing this. He was a rock star in the industry. Like, he really catapulted himself in a way that is rare, that you don't really see anymore. And there's reason for that, because again, like you don't get the DeMatteis Mike Zeck run without this. You don't get Grunwald's run without this. Like there's so much he laid the groundwork for, and some of that credit also has to go to Roy Thomas as editor. Especially early on, he would make suggestions. It was Roy Thomas who had the idea for Steve to explore what happened to this like Captain America from like the anti-communist Captain America, when they briefly brought the title back with John Romita Sr. before they ultimately canceled it, the Commie Smasher version. It was Roy Thomas's idea with Steve to be like, hey, why don't we figure out like tie up that loose end? Like, let's figure that out. And Steve ran with that. And yeah, what Steve would do with the sort of the Serpent Squad, and then later we get the Serpent Society, all that stuff. Obviously, the original Secret Empire, bringing back, Peggy Carter, which we'll go into as we talk about this. She was brought back before this story, but is featured in it. So yeah, I mean, he's kind of unparalleled. And in this particular story, I wanted to go over this one because a lot of people go like, yeah, Steve Engelhardt, original Secret Empire, but he did so much more than that. And this is a nice little 4-parter, brings back Yellow Claw, who hadn't been seen in years. I think he showed up in S.H.I.E.L.D. stories around 68, but hadn't really showed up since then. So he'd been gone for, like 6-7 years at this point. About 6 years. And then I also wanted to touch on this because of the first story with Alan Weiss, who is a phenomenal artist. He might be one of, I'm not saying it's not that he's better than Jim Steranko. It's that he's one of the more exciting sort of fill-in artists to come on the book since Steranko. From, like, what was it? 113 was like the last Steranko cap. So just in terms of having a really like exciting artist doing something, like there's a lot here to go into.
All right, Breed. So if we have viewers that they're familiar with Captain Ameerica, but they're not familiar with Yellow Claw, what's special about this villain? Why is this a villain that just should stand out and perhaps be brought back into the Captain Ameerica fold today?
Well, I don't think you're going to see that today, just for obvious reasons. I think maybe the reason why he kind of got, pushed to the side for a few years was the emergence of the Mandarin, who became a mainstay villain of Iron Man. And there might have been, there's some similarities between the two characters. So maybe that's why you didn't see him for a while. And Engelhardt found a really good way to bring him back, because Yellow Claw, unlike Mandarin, had a series in the 50s. So he'd been around for a long time, even before this. So
he's an Asian villain. He's got some powers of mysticism. Is it incantations? What does he do here?
Yeah, I was never 100% sure what his power set was, other than his ability to be really menacing and command those around him to do whatever the hell he wanted, including, offing themselves. So he had definite power over those around him.
This is my personal introduction to the villain. And I was quite taken with him. I thought it was a pretty damn good villain. And Joe, let's do a little history lesson. We're in May to August 1973. Is there anything big happening that we should know about to give a little context as we get into this story?
Well, the month before this story was Amazing Spider-Man 122. So we get, fighting back after the loss of Gwen Stacy, the death of Norman Osborn. So that's happening. And then shortly after the start of this story, while this story is going on, I think by issue 166 of Cap, we're into, full swing Avengers Defenders War. So we're really, as we're reading these issues, we have eclipsed that Silver Age, and we are right into the Bronze Age here. Engelhardt Engelhardt's Cap is definitely part of what got comics into the Bronze Age, along with Jerry Conway and others. So that's a big part here. We've got over at DC, Carrie Bates is, the Steve Engelhardt or Jerry Conway of like DC, where he's in, I think he's pretty well into his Flash run at this point. We're around Flash 121 at this time. So he's doing that with like Irv Novak. You've got Carrie Bates also doing the Superman books. He's on Action Comics. He's doing his collaborations at this point with Dave Cockrum. And this is, I think we end this the issue before the wedding of Bouncing Boy and Duo Damsel, which is the issue that ends up creating that rift with Dave Cockrum, where he jumps ship to work on this reboot of that failed team, the X-Men. And we all know that didn't go anywhere. So, that's going on. You've got, also in terms of just interesting things here, Luke Cage, you've got Engelhardt on that book. George Tuska's the penciler, but the inker is, it's Billy Graham Jr. And he's, he's a black man working on Luke Cage. And, according to Engelhardt, people working on the book, he did give sort of, feedback. They talked to him about the stories. So yeah, there was interesting, groundbreaking stuff going on as we're barreling through into, into the Bronze Age here. Herb Trimpe's already on Hulk, and it would still be a little bit before we get to Hulk 181, but we're almost there, getting there. So yeah, there's some exciting stuff going on.
Absolutely. I'm going to just say this up front as we get into Captain America 164, where this thing starts and when the actual story ends. I wouldn't have imagined it after this very first issue. I was like, oh, we're doing a werewolf story. And then where we end up going by the end, I was like, I did not see this coming, but it ends up being a fantastic sweeping story. As I mentioned, Captain America 164, Stevie Engelhardt, this with Alan Weiss and John Romita as the artist. And we see a man dressed as Cap attacked by a large number of werewolves, and a character called Nightshade calls him off kind of at the last second. We see the real Captain America is riding a motorcycle with Falcon, Eric Breed, and he's agreed to help Falcon investigate one of his friends. His name's Mel Lansing's imprisonment in Grimmock Prison. And we see Falcon and Cap infiltrate the abandoned prison, and they find this torn, shred-up mask of Captain America as they are attacked by werewolves themselves. They end up fighting them off, and they are finally confronted by the deadly Nightshade, who actually says they have captured Falcon. So Cap ends up reluctantly going along with her, and she ends up locking Captain America and Falcon in a room together, and then we learn that Falcon is now a werewolf, thanks to a serum from Nightshade. So this is a pretty exciting action-packed beginning here, Breen.
Yeah, what we find out is the reason why they're there is, Mel Lansing was a childhood friend of Sam Wilson's, and they committed petty larceny together as kids, and then their lives took off in different directions. And Mel was scared he was going to be killed while in prison, so he got a letter out to Sam to come save him. Of course, we find out that they let that letter get out, and that Mel is the guy that was dressed as Captain America who was slaughtered at the beginning of the book. So that's your context of what's going on here. And then when you guys said when they do get there, and after the initial attack of the werewolves, we meet Nightshade, who goes back and forth between sounding like a hardened supervillain to literally a child posing in front of a mirror. So he realizes that he's kind of got a crazy girl on his hands, and then of course she tells him that what she's done to the Falcon, and then when he throws Steve in with Sam right as he's turning into what's a considerably much larger wolf than any of the other ones. I don't know if she gave him more serum, or it's the fact that Sam Wilson himself was a large man to begin with, but now Cap has to fight his best friend, who is a snarling, savage beast, a werewolf.
Absolutely. And so we see him fighting, and Cap finally actually defeats Falcon Wolf with a very well-timed blow to the neck. And we see the rest of Nightshade's werewolves with Falcon Wolf. They race up to the top of this tower where Nightshade decides that they're going to leap off and orders the other werewolves to follow. Apparently, they're going to go out in a blaze of glory here, Joe. And Cap is desperate to stop Falcon Wolf from plunging over the edge. Thankfully, the rising sun changes him back into his human form. And we see that, I'm sorry, I have this stupid motorcycle. I'm going to start again. We see that Cap ends up using his weight to busting open through a door, Joe Corallo, as Falcon Wolf launches kind of at him. Nightshade realizes that she's kind of bloated, and behind her, Yellow Claw agrees. We finally see Yellow Claw, and he is withdrawing his funds that he has provided her to develop her werewolf serum. So it's been the Yellow Claw behind this all along, Joe. As the Claw leaves, Nick Fury and the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. end up raiding the facility out there to capture Claw himself. And Nightshade decides that she will not be taken alive, Joe Corallo. So we finally see the return of Yellow Claw and his dastardly doings.
Yeah, just so everyone listening knows that we do, in fact, have a pulse. Yes, we notice what Nightshade is wearing. If you call that wearing anything, but it's the neck. Yeah, it's not a lot, but one of the unspoken powers and abilities that Nightshade has is she has the ability to randomly not have her upper arm bands illustrated on her. As you'll see, there's a couple of pages, panels there where it's like, I guess they're like, or they just forgot. But that's pretty powerful to bend reality like that. So there you go, Nightshade. And it wouldn't be for another 240 issues before Nightshade turns Captain Ameerica into a werewolf. So hey,
playing the long game.
Yeah, persistence counts, kids. Don't be discouraged. It took Nightshade 240 issues to turn Cap into a werewolf. Don't get discouraged.
Well,
keep it on.
239 of those issues to peel herself up off of the ground.
Oh, we're not there yet, Breed. So we see Cap is fighting Falcon Wolf, and thankfully he puts him down with a blow to the neck, and Nightshade's werewolves start racing up to this tower where Nightshade herself, I guess she's going to go out in a blaze of glory because she's not going to be taken alive, leaps off the top and orders the werewolves to come with her, Breed. And Cap is desperate to save Falcon Wolf from plunging over the edge. Thankfully, the sun comes up just in time to turn him back into his human form. And at the end, we do see Falcon mourning the death of his friend Mel, who, as you mentioned, was the Captain Ameerica that was attacked by the werewolves at the beginning. And, obviously Nightshade had dressed him up as that kind of at the beginning of the thing. And then we see Captain Ameerica and Nick Fury. This is an important moment. And they are both very, very concerned that Yellow Claw has returned to the fold.
If I were Nick Fury, I'd be more concerned about why I was dressed like I'd just come off a team up with Killraven in Amazing Adventures. But that's neither here nor there.
There's a whole story behind that.
And maybe someday we'll tell it. But yeah, that's a lot going on for a setup issue. I said, where Steve has to hold Sam down long enough for the sun to come up because he really wants to follow his fellow werewolves. And I said that's just and then we find out again that the Yellow Claw has returned and Nick knows what he's been up to and he's going to clue him in. And that sets the stage for 165.
Absolutely. And you mentioned this earlier, Joe, but it definitely bears mentioning because I'm not going to be able to get to every single subplot. But there are a lot of little subplots that are going through. There's a Falcon subplot that's being kind of played out. It doesn't fully play into this entire story. It obviously gets played out further on. But you do have the Sharon Carter, Peggy Carter. You got Nick Fury, the contestant, and all these things that are kind of moving around in the background while you have this one narrative involving Yellow Claw moving forward. And it's really, really well done and really engaging. And I think that Steve Engelhardt absolutely, he knew how to do comic books. Let's just put it that way.
No, he absolutely did. And I'm not saying this to not Chris Claremont. I love Chris Claremont, but other people also knew how to, weave these subplots in. And I think Steve Engelhardt does a phenomenal job with it. You read this whole run and all those subplots, there's a lot going on. And he still manages to focus on the action and really making that pop while having all these subplots go through. But, I really want to make sure if people are watching this, that's what we're talking about with with Nick Fury there in that outfit. The interesting thing, that's page 16 of this issue. Now, the interesting thing with this, too, is this was done as a way, it's like, it's a fill-in. They were able to get Alan to do this, but it's also to let Sal catch up. So Sal already started drawing the next issue. Alan didn't say anything to Steve or anyone about this outfit and just did it. So that's why in the next issue, he's just his regular outfit, because Sal's already done. He's playing catch up. So that's sort of how that bit happens. But yeah, and then Alan too, just in terms of moodiness, in terms of faces, there's a lot of examples of faces, but I mean, you look at that on page 18, Nightshade's face there, like he just does such a brilliant job at facial expressions and just the moodiness, everything, like, and no offense to Sal, I love Sal. If you like Bronze Age Marvel comics, you like Sal Buscema, because you can't not read a Sal comic in that era. But Sal, bless his heart, would have never created a character or worked on a character like Nightshade and put her in that outfit. That would have never happened with Sal.
So speaking of Sal, he is the primary artist and takes over for the rest of the story, beginning of Captain Ameerica 165. And we kind of see at the beginning there's some undertones that are, as you mentioned, are going to be played out as the story plays along, well past what we're talking about here, where Nick Fury is essentially scolding Cap for ruining S.H.I.E.L.D.'s raid on Yellow Claw, and he demands that Cap essentially stay out of it, Joe. And Cap is actually quite defiant about it, says it's personal now, and that he's not giving it up. And Falcon himself mentions that he wants revenge too, but he's not going to pursue Yellow Claw because he actually has too much to lose, which is a nice little character moment to see that he's seen the bigger picture, but he's also, he's got, family and whatnot that he needs to take care of. So they kind of go their own separate ways. And then we see that Yellow Claw has actually moved his operations to New York City, perhaps right down the street from Casa de Corallo at the time. And Captain Ameerica is battling the Yellow Claw's new sinister creation, these giant tarantulas who are destroying the city. It's actually quite exciting, although I hate spiders. Steve ends up defeating the spiders, sending them back into the sewers, which they caved, and then he ends up following them to their hideout to where Yellow Claw is. And there's a big, what is it? Is it, it's not smoke signals. What do they do when they have the plane that does the little...
Skywriting.
Skywriting. There's some skywriting, kind of antagonizing Cap, letting him know he should probably follow these spiders.
Oh yeah, no, it's really good stuff. I mean, we went from fighting werewolves one issue to fighting giant spiders the next, and it all fits like narratively. It's almost like Steve Engelhart was trying to tell a compelling and interesting story for readers.
Oh, don't be.
I don't know what he was thinking. He's bucking the trend. So Breed, we see at the hideout, Captain Ameerica ends up facing Yellow Claw in one-on-one combat. This is what we all came to see. And Cap wins the battle. He ends up using, this is important, Breed, his full super strength because, Yellow Claw is so formidable. And after Yellow Claw is laying at his feet, the form begins to shift, and it turns out it's like a hallucination or something. And Steve was not battling Yellow Claw, but he sees that he was actually fighting a severely beaten down and almost dead friend in Nick Fury, which we certainly saw play out in Old Man Logan. They certainly yanked that story arc to do that with Wolverine later on. And we see Yellow Claw appear on the screen behind Cap, taunting him and telling that he just killed Nick Fury thanks to the powers of his mind. Yellow Claw can't be defeated, Bree.
Yeah, now, real quick, the antagonistic nature that Nick had towards Cap at the beginning of the story, that's from a past subplot where the Contessa had fallen for Steve. Nick found out about it, didn't like what was going on there. he rebuffed her because he's in love with Sharon. Yeah. There's at the time there was no room in the subplot for Peggy. So just human emotions took over, and Steve and Nick got more antagonistic with each other. And Nick tried to throw his power around. Steve being an Avenger and a kind of a free agent wasn't having that. So the relationship between the two was pretty contentious at this point. So when they do fight, and through the Yellow Claw's machinations, he's thinking he's fighting himself when he's actually fighting Nick. That the reason why I brought that up is it will make the Contessa's actions in the next issue a lot more clear why she is treating Steve the way she does.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's going on. You have the whole subplot here with Peggy and Sharon. Basically, earlier on in this run, they find and free Peggy, who has been sort of being like brainwashed in a way by Dr. Faustus. They rescue her, but she's much older now, and Steve hasn't aged, and that's why he's with Sharon. He didn't know Peggy was still around. You get this interesting sort of love story, and see, this is interesting because there's stakes, because as a reader you care about both Peggy and Sharon Carter, you care about Cap, and he's in a situation where it's going to be hard to find anyone not having hard feelings, at least for some time. So there's just this like powder keg you're waiting to go off. Like he handles that so well. And speaking of another powder keg, you get a little glimpse of the Falcon subplot here, where Morgan's trying to bully Falcon into being one of his guys to help him like sort of enforce that part of the city. And he's not having any of it. Like there's just so much interesting stuff really packed in this issue. You can't imagine this happening in one issue anymore. This is like 6 issues, just this one issue.
Absolutely. So I hope if you liked werewolves, if you like giant spiders, you're going to love this issue. We get into Captain Ameerica 166. We see Cap, he grabs Fury, and he tries to escape the way that he came in. It turns out the tunnel has been, blockaded, so he ends up breaking through it, because Yellow Claw's a bad guy. And as soon as he breaks through this, Joe, he finds an enormous scorpion, which he ends up battling with his shield. He takes a couple blows here and there, but he ends up winning in the end. And then we see the grand plan is starting to play out. Yellow Claw has his grandniece, Suwad, in like stasis. I don't know, she's in some type of like a tube, and he vows to reanimate her while also lamenting the fact that she has destroyed his plans in the past from within, like she had infiltrated his organization. It turns out she was a good guy. And we see that Steve returns to his apartment. He learns that he's been evicted, and he discovers a newspaper questioning Captain Ameerica's ability to work with outside the law, which kind of aggravates him as well. And then we do see Falcon fighting crime on the streets, where he learns about what happened to Nick Fury and decides he's going to get back in the game, Joe. So we're putting another chess piece back into the mix here.
Oh yeah, no. So we get werewolves one issue. We get giant spiders the next issue. This issue, mummies are on the cover.
We haven't even got to that part. We got the scorpion already.
Yeah, we're still fighting the scorpion. But if you're picking these up, looking at the covers, you're like, oh man, werewolves, giant spiders, mummies. Did you know that it's possible for Captain Ameerica to fight fun things, and not everything has to be a dour story about reflecting on the true meaning of the American dream, and if we live up to it? Sometimes you can just punch a mummy.
Have a little fun with it. So, Bree, we end up seeing Captain Ameerica and Falcon are trailing the Yellow Claw, and they end up at the Museum of Natural History. And they are quickly attacked by the aforementioned mummies. That Claw is actually reanimated, like you said, I'm not sure what his skill set is, but we've seen him. He's been able to make people have hallucinations. He's bringing mummies back to life. He ends up doing a couple other things. There's definitely some magic going on here, Breed. I would love to know exactly what it is. And we see Cap and Falcon eventually defeating the mummies, essentially by cutting them apart. One of them has a sword. Cap actually has his shield. And we see Cap and Falcon seized from behind by two giant zombie minions from Yellow Claw. And then Captain Ameerica and Falcon are forced to watch the Claw's last sinister act as Plan Chu recites a spell that transplants the evil spirit of the long-dead Princess Fale Tabat into the body of his niece Suwan. That's how he was going to use the body. She's not even herself anymore, Breed. This is terrible. That's his family.
Well, I think we can now safely say that the Yellow Claw was the original reanimator. Now, Joseph, if I could prevail upon you to pull up page 3 of this issue, because I would be remiss in my duty if I didn't mention long-term comic book fans are familiar with the term the Sal Buscema spittle.
Mm-hmm.
And having a giant scorpion must have been like the wish fulfillment for Sal. Because boy, do you get a heaping helping of the Sal Buscema spittle.
Oh yeah, you really do. And then you got plenty on page 4 there too.
Yeah, I mean that's just a tour de force. But back to our regularly scheduled story. So yeah, we find out what he was planning to do, and while he was doing that, like I said, he's I can't remember if it's this issue or the next issue, but he just casually tells his right hand man to, after he kills the guard, he goes, dispose of the body, then dispose of yourself for letting him get that far. Yep. If you haven't learned 3 issues in, he's not a nice guy.
Yeah, no, it happens right there. Is he? If you had one word to describe a character like Yellow Claw, just one word, would it be maybe villain?
I was going to say despicable.
I was going to say diabolical.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey.
And very, very evil.
Yes.
And for a guy who's really not known for his facial expressions, Suwan looks pretty diabolical on that last page.
Oh yeah, and you can tell something has definitely changed with the character. She's no longer the Suwan we all knew and loved.
Wasn't aware that we loved her, but yeah, well taken.
But then you also get you get part of this too is the Carters do not live in New York. They're down in was it Virginia? And so it is a shock when Peggy just shows up, who we know as the readers is not completely mentally with it. She's still like recovering. She's still dealing with a lot of trauma, which is crazy because I didn't think we dealt with things like PTSD and trauma until very recently in comics. So I don't know how this happened, but
And we also got, some softening of Layla's personality, because if you read the first 20 or so issues she appeared in, to say she was militant would be an understatement. Yeah. So you're starting to see her, although I didn't realize even this deep in that she still didn't know that Sam was the Falcon. I'd forgotten that, but yeah, so you start to see her personality being, broadened.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be more than just a, I said, I hate, So that was kind of a nice touch when she was actually taking care of Peggy.
It was interesting, when we get into 167, it's not really in the notes, but I remember this moment happening where there's a moment where Peggy's like, I'm going with you, Cap. I'm going on the mission. And he has to explain to her, he's like, listen, you're not young anymore. I've got Falcon here. I've got Sharon. Like, you can't come on missions with me anymore. And she's like completely broken down. And obviously that's going to lead to bigger things down the road. But they are definitely planting the seeds with the Sharon Carter story, or I'm sorry, Peggy Carter returning story Breen throughout the whole thing, but it's done really right. It's just the right amount to let you know that it's important, but it's not so much that it takes you out of the story that you're supposed to be really, engrossed in.
Yeah, like you said, it was done well because she isn't the person that she once was, and life has moved on for everybody but her. And I said that's hard to deal with. Anybody that's had to deal with that in real life, and you put it in a superhero world, it's even more difficult. That how do you basically keep the lie going until you can no longer keep the lie going? So
it shows like Cap's leadership too, where he's like, listen, I'm not even considering this. I'm just going to tell you straight up, this is why I'm not going to be able to do this. It would have been easy to be the nice guy, right?
Yeah.
Let's find another mission for you. He's like, nah, this isn't happening.
Well, because he says, honey, the Nazis were children compared to the supervillains of today.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of that was my favorite line when he was trying to explain to her why she couldn't go with them.
Yeah, and it's great. The cover for issue 167 too. I mean, this looks like the most exciting James Bond movie. Like this could be a Bond like poster. I mean, this is it's phenomenal.
So getting into Captain America 167, we do see Cap and Falcon. They try to get the drop on the zombie minions. They put up a damn good fight, Joe. But even at one point, they do appear to be winning. But Cap and Falcon both end up getting knocked out eventually. They wake up, and I love this. This is so comic books. I love comic books. They wake up tied to giant pillars inside the museum with crossbows aimed at their hearts that are like dipped in poison. Like, this guy is pure evil. What a scumbag, Joe. He's trying to kill these guys. He's gloating how he's going to do it the whole time. And then we see that Nick Fury is in the hospital. This has been one of the subplots since he got, essentially almost beaten to death by Captain America on accident. He wakes up in agony. Another moment I love when we see that Contessa ends up running to go get help. Obviously, they're very concerned that he's in so much pain. And they go by the nurse that's walking to Nick Fury's room, and she doesn't realize that this nurse has enormous muscular calves that would kind of give away that something's going on. She realizes that the nurse has black shoes on, and nurses don't wear black shoes. So she about faces to go back in there because obviously something is amiss. And it turns out that there is an assassin that is trying to take Nick Fury's life. He ends up screaming, "All hail the New Order!" But I love the calves on that nurse. Joe Corallo from Sal Buscema, because those look like they were on Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're so muscular.
Yeah, I mean, that's also probably just Steve wrote the script not being sure how Sal was going to draw it, and then Sal drew it that way. That's usually how that kind of stuff happens. So it works. It still works. Yeah.
What about those shoes? I was like, I would have seen the calves. Like, those are some enormous calves.
Okay, can I be just sexist enough to say, of course, the woman's going to notice the shoes?
I guess it's in character or something. So I love that moment. All this stuff feels very comic booky. It's the things that you love about comic books, going a little bit over the top, but not going so far over the top that it becomes more embarrassing.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
If he's got a poison ring that he tries to take out the Contessa with, why didn't he just stick Nick with that instead of wasting time with the pillow?
Obviously the ring, it was a secondary measure. He didn't want to go to it first because it could implicate him. If you snuff somebody out with a pillow, you don't know how they died other than know that they were suffocated. You use poison on a ring, it can be traced back to you.
I don't think he was overly concerned with that.
Well, he did seem to be.
I could be wrong.
He did seem to be pretty devoted to the cause. So after this breed, we see Cap wakes up just in time to realize he's actually been strapped to a pillar, and there's an arrow about to be let loose into his heart. He and Falcon actually tip the pillar over. As it crashes to the ground, the arrows hit each other in mid-flight, which I thought was a great moment. And they discover that the Natural History Museum is absolutely empty. and it's time to go home. They were not able to complete their mission. Yellow Claw and Suad infiltrate the helicarrier. What a big moment. We're seeing a helicarrier in the 1970s, and they are hell-bent on stealing a robot that apparently impersonated them in Strange Tales 160 through 167. Wonderful callback. And Nick Fury finally wakes up, and he realizes that Claw is planning on stealing a helicarrier. We know that it's already actually happened. And Cap and Falcon realize that he can destroy everything if this happens. And then we do see that Yellow Claw and his men have fully taken over the helicarrier. So this is a lot of big-time implications. We started out fighting werewolves, and now we've taken over a helicarrier in 4 short issues. Very good stuff.
Yeah. Just borrow one of Joe's lines. If this were done today, that would have been revealed in one of the 13 specials or side miniseries. But then we find out that you can only be an evil douchebag so many times to so many people before someone says, "Now." Because while he's monologuing and says, "The world is mine, mine." Zap. No, ancestor. It's mine.
Yes. We get the classic comic book double turn.
Yes.
As Cap, Falcon, Sharon Carter, and Dum Dum Dugan, they burst through the wall in the ship, Joe, and they're gonna fight it all out. And we saw actually Yellow Claw is ready for him. He knocks them all out with nerve gas because he and Suad have taken an antidote, before it happens. So they're impervious to it. And then we do get the big turn that Bree was talking about. Suad shoots her uncle in the chest. I love double crosses. And we see something I wouldn't have expected at this moment, Joe. Claw crawls over to Cap and gives him the antidote as his last, what appears to be his last living act. And Cap and company take the antidote. They bring the pain to Claw's bed and capture Suad. And eventually we see Yellow Claw. He's not dead. He actually comes back and he speaks like an incantation that turns Suad essentially into a corpse. And he is able to escape while promising that he will return again. Just like every great comic book villain should do, Joe.
No, it's great. You get that whole classic bit. He escapes. He will return. He does return. He does fight Cap again. And yeah, it's great. Now you just you reestablish a villain. You put him back on the table. You make it very clear that he's this ongoing threat. So that way Cap can go back to fighting guys like the Tumbler soon.
And he took over a helicarrier. That's pretty impressive to take over an entire helicarrier from S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, you've done something.
Yeah, no, he's a formidable opponent. It's great. And then Cap deals with a lot more of those. It would not too long after this, other than the Tumbler, he also deals with the original Moonstone and characters like that. Like there's really exciting stuff that happens in this run.
Well, the very next issue introduces a Son of Zemo.
Yeah.
In the form of the Phoenix.
That's true.
There are too many Phoenix characters within the Marvel Comics universe. So, Bree, this is it's a fun story. Like I said, you start out with werewolves. I never thought I would end up with a helicarrier being taken over. But it happened, and we got a classic comic double turn. If people are excited about this story, they want to read it. Obviously, you can get it in back issues. Where's this thing collected, Joe? I'm sorry, Eric.
Well, Joe's got a nice one than I'm. So I couldn't find my issues. So
that's beautiful.
I had to go back to the days where it reminded me of me watching television as a child, black and white. But so I have it in Essentials. I'm sure Joe has it in an omnibus. I don't know if these issues have been covered in an Epic collection yet. If not, it's the one before that. So, and the issues themselves, since 168 isn't part of the story, it's not terribly expensive to find the actual issues.
Yeah. Yeah, these ones aren't too bad to find. But yeah, the omnibus, it's volume 3 of this. This is you get the entire Engelhardt run in this omnibus. You get some other stuff too. It gets you, it bookends right with the Jack Kirby's like return omnibus. So there's plenty of sites that you can get this at like a discount, Amazon, in stock trades, cheap graphic novels. I highly recommend, if you are a Captain America fan and you never read the Steve Engelhardt run, you have to read it. Everything else will make more sense because everyone minds this run. Everyone. You're going to read, if you've ever read Captain America stuff after this, it's going to make more sense because they all took from this run. So
it's almost like you got to go read the original 40 issues of Fantastic Four if you want to understand the Marvel Universe. If you want to understand Captain America, you need to go read this part.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's, Cap's great. I love, really from, Stern Burns straight through, Heroes, was it Heroes Reborn? Right
into the Mark Waid,
right up until then.
Yeah,
the first bit of the Mark Waid, Ron Garney stuff. Really, that whole shot through is pretty solid. Not everything's amazing, but it doesn't dip below a certain point. But yeah, this is read this whole run, the Engelhardt run, and then read those 200 issues of Captain America, and then
and then come back next week for a quiz.
Yes,
we'll be ready to talk about some more Cap.
But I mean, but we're gonna do more Cap because we're all nerds who like Captain America. At some point, we'll probably do the return of Captain America and Red Skull to the Silver Age with like Avengers #4, and then was it Tales of Suspense 79 through 81 with the Cosmic Cube saga with Red Skull. That'd be a good one to do.
I think it was later in the issues in the 80s.
Okay,
I think,
but yeah. So either it's around there. We'll do that at some point. There's other points in Cap's history we want to hit. We'll definitely do that at some point. But there's plenty of other stuff. Rodgers and John Byrne. And other things, but yeah, no, Cap's great. Read Cap.
Absolutely. And if you want to be ready for next week, we're going to do a tribute to Captain Cold and Flash. Is that what it is, Breed? What issues are we doing for that? People want to get ready and read up.
I believe you need to ask our colleague underneath.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh, no, that's fine. But no, we are going to do, it's showcase number 8 is the first appearance of Captain Cold. And then it's Flash. This is all the Silver Age. This is, the Carmine Infantino stuff is Flash 114, 134, and 140. So that way we're going to get to those classic Captain Cold stories. And we're also going to get the first appearance of Heatwave.
Very nice. So I do want to say thank you very much to my good friends Joe and Eric for joining me. Talk about some classic Captain America, and like I said, next week we will be doing the Flash versus Captain Cold. Ought to be a lot of fun, and we'll see you next week.